Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome back to another video in the series on crankbaits, hard baits. Today we're going to talk about the lipless crankbait, which has to be one of my most favorite crankbaits when it comes to hard bait fishing. And so what I'm going to do, just to try and keep it simple so we don't get confusing here, I'm going to use a series of illustrations on my computer so that you get a better visualization of what I'm talking about, all right? And again, it's going to be another quick and dirty explanation geared to the new people in the sport, so you have a rough idea of what a lipless crankbait is, so that when you walk into your tackle store, your outdoor store, you're not overwhelmed with everything that you see. You're going to have at least a rudimentary idea of what this bait looks like and what it and how it performs. Okay, so there are many interesting characteristics to this bait that are really make this bait shine when it comes to using it for bass fishing. So why don't we go to the illustrations and I will attempt to explain the mechanics and the construction and uses of the lipless crankbait. Let's go. So this is our little friend, the lipless crankbait. And as you can see, he has a number of similarities to his cousin, the lipped crankbait. But it's also got a couple of differences as well. So let's just quickly review what we've got here. Of course, the obvious, we've got the trebles, one located under the chin and the other on the tail. They're affixed to the body of the lure with O-rings or split rings, so the lure can be modified if you wish to do so. Going up to the nose here, you can see the flat ridge, which is where the lure gets its other name. That's flat nose or snub nose lure. Now this is the ridge that is very instrumental on how the lure swims in the water. What happens is as the lure is being retrieved, it kind of dips down a little because it's nose heavy, and this flat ridge causes resistance and it gives this lure a really wicked shimmy. Combined with where the toe loop is for the line, which is right on the crown here and not down on the nose like it is on the lipped lures, this also assists in the movement or the swim pattern when the lure is being retrieved. Most of these lures come in a shad profile, as you see here. They usually have an eye painted on. Sometimes they have those little eyes with the little beads inside to add to the rattle, to give the lure a bit more of an auditory response. But they usually have a painted eye on. Some of them are very realistic looking, and others are actually quite comical. Now, inside this lure, he's actually hollow. We'll take a look at a cross-section of the insides here. Here we go. So this is the inside of one of these baits. He's actually quite flat. He's not got the rounded body that his lipped cousin has, and his flat sides and his diamond shape add to his aerodynamics or his hydrodynamics. So this lure is actually very castable because there's weight to it, and this is why anglers really like using it as a search bait. And he's also very quick in the water because of his smooth flat sides, and that's another reason why anglers like using it as a search bait. But in this cross section, you can see that what's inside the body. You can see the where they affix or they insert, I should say, the stumps or the posts for the treble hooks, and of course the toe loop, which is at the top of the head. But then we have at the back here, well, this little shot, that's the rattle chamber, and that shot is there to make a noise as the lure is swimming. It kind of rattles. That's another name it gets called, is a rattle bait. If you shake one of these, you'll hear the little rattles inside it. Now some do come hollow. They don't actually have a rattle chamber, but if they have a rattle chamber, that's what it will consist of, these small BB sized pellets. Now up the front, that's where the ballast is, and that's where the weight of this lure is packed. Usually a couple of lead shot is in the nose. This is why This what makes this lure a very castable lure, and also what makes the lure a negative buoyancy. And if you remember in my last video what negative buoyancy is, this lure is a sinker. If it's not being manipulated, if it's not being retrieved, it will just simply sink down to the bottom of the lake or the riverbed or wherever you're fishing, all right? So it's one of those lures you must keep moving, otherwise it's going to just deep six on you, all right? So there's not a huge lot of differences, but there are significant differences in the design of this lure. Now, you heard me mention search bait. Yes, these are incredible search baits because they're very castable, and the angler can control the running depth and dive of the lure simply by altering their retrieval. So if you're retrieving fast, the lure will be in the upper area of the water column. If you slow down the retrieval, the lure will sink down and go to the lower level of the water column. Now, because of that, anglers can use them without having to switch out for other baits to alter the dive pattern. They can continue with the same lure when they're using them as search baits. They work better on a bait casting system than they do a spinning system. Now, I'm not saying you can't use it on a spinning system. You certainly can. But if you're looking for precision casting, which is what these are really designed for, then you need to use a bait casting system. And that takes a little practice to get used to that type of fishing system. So really, these lures, you need to be a little bit proficient with the accuracy of your casting. Now, what are the cons of these lures? Well, first off, as I said before, they sink. Yeah, they sink. If you're not retrieving them, they're just going to sink down to the bottom. And that can be a bit problematic, especially if you're in an area where there's a lot of snags and crags and whatever, trying to lure fish out. Unlike the lipped cousin, which is a lighter lure, which either suspends or floats to the surface, these things, if you get snagged 2 or 3 feet under the water, you're probably going to end up losing it if you can't retrieve it. Certainly, you're going to lose it at deeper levels if it's snagged. So the rate of losing these lures is a little bit higher than the lures that float. So you need to keep that in mind, and that's why you need to know how to cast. You need to be accurate with your casting when you're using a lipless crankbait. Now, they come in various sizes. They do come in small. They come, that big to that big. But again, the size depends on, the type of fish that you're looking for. Of course, you would use a bigger lure if you're going after the bigger prey fish. But you can also use them on panfish as well, the smaller ones. But they are I think they're an incredible lure to use because they are so much fun. They're very castable because of their weight. And like I said, they have a most incredible shimmy to them when you're retrieving them. You will actually feel the vibration and the pulsation telegraphed down your fishing pole into your arm. You can feel this puppy swim, where you don't really get that vibration or sensation with the lipped crankbaits because they run a lot smoother. Now, the cost of these, about $6 to $7 per lure and up. They're not cheap. So these are lures you really don't want to lose if you can avoid it. I know I've lost them. It's annoying. And I swear I'll never use them again. But I always do because, like I say, it's one of my favorite lures. So that is a little quick and dirty explanation of our friend, the snub-nosed or lipless crankbait, all right? So I hope it gives you a little bit of an understanding of what these do. So when you go and you see them, the ones with the flat nose, that's what they call the lipless crankbait. They're negative buoyancy, so they sink. They come with rattles. They have usually the 2 treble hooks on the bottom. You can modify if you want. They're a great casting bait. They're a great search bait, and they're just dynamite when you're fishing for bass. All right? So until our next video, I'm not sure what I'm going to be doing yet. This is Sharon saying, tight lines.